Sure shot, baby!
So, good day, everyone. We're here for another episode of the DVD show. So, for today, we have one of the best jiu-jitsu athletes in the world, and she also won already a ton of world championships over the course of her career, and she also won a medal in the Asian Games already and SEA Games representing the Philippines. And I'll now welcome here to the DVD show Meggie Ochoa. Thank you for joining me here on my podcast.
Hi, hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Diego. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you also so much for accepting the invitation. And syempre, to start things off, gusto lang kita kamustahin kung kamusta ngayon yung family mo, ikaw, and even your training, especially
Mhm.
now, nung start ng 2022, medyo mahirap ulit lahat, lalo na for the athletes.
Yeah, actually, yes, now we're okay, but during the start of the year, like a lot of us got sick at home. There were some that were positive, but now we're all cleared naman. Very mild lang yung symptoms. In terms of ano naman, training, well, of course, things also stopped because you
Mm.
can't really do close contact sports, diba, when it's a certain alert level here in the Philippines. But ayun, I think soon enough naman since bumababa na naman yung cases, I hope we can like go back in full force again.
Mm. Ano ba yung classing training na nagagawa mo ngayon since, I don't know, is it like Zoom na lang or yeah, on virtual since wala yung contact training?
Yeah, so for training now, we do some weight training and then I am able to train with certain people lang, like very controlled, let's say tatlo lang kami. Parang
Ah,
super
okay.
controlled lang na jiu-jitsu, like, sobrang konti lang namin. Like we haven't really opened up training with like a lot of people and it's not like in a public space. Literally like sa house lang of someone, parang
Oo.
ganon. So very,
Mm.
very controlled measures kasi nga yun nga, we
Mm.
can't go all out pa.
Oo. Ano ba yung usual training routine niyo or kunwari nung pre-pandemic or nung lumuwag ng konti dito? Like gaano kadami ba kayo or gaano ka-often ba yung training niyo?
Well, actually, before the pandemic, we used to train at least twice a day, from Monday to Saturday. And you have like
Mm.
a variety of training partners. As in, marami talaga. Like siguro
Mm.
around 20 per class or 20 per group. So parang
Mm.
you'll get different styles, you'll be exposed to different people, different sizes. So
Mm.
ngayon, syempre hindi pwedeng gano'n. So
Daming tao.
ano, very limited talaga ngayon and yeah, before then we used to really go abroad, especially when we're
Mm.
preparing for competitions.
Ah, okay, yeah. So, speaking of competitions, I think I saw on your Instagram nga that you had a competition recently. So, how was
Mm,
that like and how did you prepare for it? Like, syempre, I think that was a tough one for you because it's a
yeah,
different preparation kasi yun nga, pandemic and siguro yung mga sinasabi mo kanina na perks nyo na nakukuha nung pre-pandemic, wala yun nung nagtitrain ka for this specific tournament that you
exactly.
had in 2021.
Exactly. So the previous tournament, yung JJIF World Championship, of course we had very limited training partners kasi nga we
Mm.
only trained in small groups. We really only got, well, we did have a training bubble, but it was only for 3 weeks, and it was kind of
Mm.
far from the actual World Championship. So I can't really consider that a training camp for the Worlds. So what we did was we just trained in small groups. Usually nga we have training camps pa abroad. So very, very limited talaga yung preparations. But I can say that I'm just happy to be back
Mm.
competing again kasi 2 years. Ever
Mm.
since SEA Games 2019, that was my first competition. So, ano lang, parang sobrang saya na nakalaban. And
Mm.
yes, the performance, I think, of course, it could have been much, much better. Kasi yung mga tumalo sa akin, tinalo ko na sila dati. So, parang ano,
Oo.
alam ko I'm really not at my best form. So, ayun.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned yung training niyo 3 weeks lang. Was there a way na humaba sana yun since siyempre 'pag any sport naman mas maganda 'pag ilang months yung training, like lalo na pagka competition na gano'n kalaki. So what was the reason siguro na ba't mas maiksi yung training?
Ano, the training bubble kasi hindi talaga kayang gawing mahaba yun. Kasi, well, first of all, budget-wise, very limited yung budget of our
Ah, okey.
NSA. and a training bubble is very expensive. It's really difficult
Mm.
to organize, and I think that it would be better if we really train abroad kasi that's what we used to do and it worked. But of course, excuse me, I understand
Mm.
then kasi like last year parang medyo hindi din sila sure pa about the risks of training abroad. But I think
Mm.
like this year naman medyo we have a clearer idea of like what kinds of protocols to do, and
Mm.
how can we do this safely, 'di ba? So yeah, I think yun mainly it was budget kaya hindi masyadong na-extend, and I think also availability of people kasi most of the people in the team actually have other commitments. They have families, they have day jobs. So, hindi din talaga kaya na matagal dun sa
Mm.
training bubble. So, ayun, yeah. Ideally talaga, camps abroad, that's really the way to go. Kasi right now then, we can't really hold like big training camps in the Philippines because now we have different protocols here. Like we have different
Mm.
alert levels, may different guidelines, and then the things really change. And
Yeah.
then yeah, but in other countries things are more open.
Mm.
So and they're able to manage the risks differently. Kaya for
Mm.
athletes in close contact sports, I really think na we have to go outside.
Yeah, tama nga naman. Like, even
Mm.
yung mga ibang sports na nandito sa Philippines, like boxing, mahirap din yun. Basketball,
Yes,
like, those are
'di
all
ba?
close contact also. So, it's
Mhm.
gonna be tough. Like, yung kumari sa basketball, like, in FIBA, they've been planning to host it here. I think mapopostpone ulit yun kasi Feb yata dapat eh. How are we
Ang
gonna host
hirap.
something if,
Yeah,
yeah,
imposible
it's
pa.
really tough.
Mm.
Mahirap talaga. So, I don't know. I'm still hoping na sana maging normal. I mean, like, set my sense of normalcy na kasi yung sports gusto ko talaga, like, maging full na ulit na parang 2020, 2019, like, ng SEA Games. I miss
Yeah,
those times na madami ring fans na nanonood, ganun. Because the crowd
exactly.
also adds to the effect of the players. So, yeah,
Yep.
hopefully that comes soon. But then you mentioned nga na yung hiatus mo, mga 1.5 years. That's pretty long for any sport and any
Mhm.
athlete in any sport. So, what did you do actually in terms of working on your jiu-jitsu skills? I don't know what you call it, but then, like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, your talent. How do you to not be rusty and mahaba din yun na walang
Yeah.
tournament.
Well, of course, fitness-wise, syempre I still worked out regularly. Every day pa rin akong may ginagawang some kind of workout. Actually, bumili na nga kami ng setup dito sa bahay for like squat rack para at least makapagbuhat
Mm,
man lang, 'di ba? And
mm,
I really decided then to work on the aspects na I don't normally get to work on, strengthen certain parts of the body na normally hindi mo nagagawa kasi tuloy-tuloy yung training and preparations. And I think more importantly, I actually focused on the other aspects of my life. Kasi nga it was an
mm,
opportunity because I did neglect the other aspects of my life because of focusing on preparations for competition. So that's pretty much what I did nung nung height of the pandemic talaga. Tumingin ako sa
mm,
mga things that are that I could actually do something about.
mm. Yeah, you mentioned Ghana, you focus on other aspects of your life. And I think I read in an article kanina na you had a project called Safe, and maybe you could talk a bit about it and what was that, how did you formulate that project, and how did it go?
Yeah. So, yung kasi, apart from me being an athlete, I do also have this advocacy called Fight to Protect. So, we use sport as a platform and tool to address the issue of child sexual violence. So,
Mm,
nung pandemic, the incidents of online sexual exploitation of children have been said to increase because a lot of children and a lot of perpetrators were online more. So there were
mm,
more
mm,
opportunities to for this abuse to happen, 'di ba? And yung Philippines kasi has been tagged by both the International Justice Mission and UNICEF as a global hotspot and the epicenter of online sexual exploitation of children. So because of that, I felt this sense of urgency na okay, what can I do here from my home, 'di ba? I can't really go out there and
mm,
do much kasi nga maraming restrictions nung time na yon. So what we did was as Fight to Protect, we partnered with yung organizations that are operating in the local communities that are vulnerable to OSEC. OSEC is
Mm.
online sexual exploitation of children. And what
Mhm.
we did was we used like the platform of sport to help raise funds for their existing project. Their existing project was Project Safe. So SAFE stands for Support and Awareness to Fight Exploitation. And what they did was they raised awareness on the issue local communities by empowering youth advocates, and they also did provide yung needs ng local communities. Kasi nung time na yun, sobrang ano talaga, hirap, ang daming nawalan ng trabaho and all that. And very vulnerable yung communities to going into this kind of it's a form of trafficking eh. It's a form of human
Oo.
trafficking, 'di ba? So
Mm.
ayun, so nagpartner kami with Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. They were the ones that really implemented the project, and what we did was we helped them raise awareness but to different audiences naman, hindi dun sa local community, para we can tap resources from people who wanted to take part in these kinds of efforts and help protect children even from their very own homes. So we actually nag-organize kami ng Sweat to Protect to help raise funds for Project Safe, parang online workout fundraiser. And we were able to raise around, I think, 600 plus thousand pesos and
That's a
reach
lot naman,
mga
yeah.
2,000 families. Ganun. So, that's one of the things that I was busy with then nung height ng pandemic. It was Fight to Protect. And we were also, kasi yung other thing then that Fight to Protect does is we actually teach the sport of jiu-jitsu to children that have been rescued.
Mhm.
So, parang helping them recover from their trauma. So, we actually were able to expand to even more homes kasi nga naging online. 'Di ba pagka in
Mm.
person, very limited yung pwede mong maturuan, but since naging online siya, we were able to expand to even more
Yeah.
shelters and teach them
Oo.
the sport. So ayun.
Mm. Yes, yung maganda ngang initiative yun na when I read it, before I wasn't really aware of it nung mga siguro earlier part of nung wala pang pandemic, mga 2019 siguro, I wasn't really
Mhm.
aware about that advocacy yet. Pero I've read about it na nga, and it's great that you continue to do it, especially nitong pandemic. Yun nga, you reached the great goal that you had in that part in the early part of the pandemic in 2020. Pero
Mhm.
I'm curious also, how did you have that passion? Like, where did it stem from to have that advocacy? Because people could actually think of a lot of things, to help solve the problems in the world. Pero ikaw, parang na-execute mo talaga, and continually mong ginagawa, hindi lang yung parang isang like project lang tapos na. You still continue doing it, and you continue to progress into, greater goals and objectives in the future.
Yeah, so medyo mahaba siyang kwento, but I'll try to summarize it. It
Yeah,
actually
go lang.
started kasi
Mm.
2015, yan yung year na I joined yung IBJJF World Championship for the second time. And
Mm.
then after winning that, that's when I started asking the question of purpose. Like, what's all
Mm.
this for? Parang I didn't really understand why I was doing what I was doing. I'm
Mm.
like, kasi crowdfunded athlete din ako before. So I
Mm.
was actually spending other people's money to be able to
Oo.
join the competitions nung wala pang national team. So parang
Mm.
isip ko, ba't ko ba 'to ginagawa? Okay,
Mm.
nanalo na ako and then what, 'di ba? I mean, of course,
Mm.
magandang bagay yan to bring home medals for your country, 'di ba? And I'm not gonna take that away from athletes, but I just felt like there was something missing. And after that, it was then the same year, month of November 2015, that's when I came across a certain article on CNN, and it was actually about a survivor of child sex trafficking, and she was speaking in the article, and then she said that from the age of 12 to 16 years old, she was actually raped 43,200 times. So, nung nabasa ko yun, ako parang, what? This happens to children? Parang nangyayari to sa
Mm.
mga bata? Posible ba to? Is this even physically possible? So, child sex trafficking nga, kaya ganun kadaming beses because it happened every single day. So,
Mm.
yung time na yun, sobra akong na-bother and I literally couldn't sleep. So, I researched about the issue, and long story short, sobrang daming events na nangyari doon. I met certain people who were involved with the same kinds of issues. And then what happened then along the process was I also got to know the Lord. As in, that's
Mm,
when I surrendered my life to Christ and got to know the Lord. Feel ko nga He used that to lead me to Him. Eh. That's first and
mm,
foremost. And then the more I got to know the Lord, the more na develop yung desire to actually use whatever He's blessed my life with. So yung question of purpose, number one, is to bring God glory. Number two, how do I do that? It's using the sport of jiu-jitsu na He allowed those victories in my life. And nagkaroon ako ng platform because of that. And even the sport itself, being taught to the children that experience that kind of trauma, it has proved to be beneficial. So I see na nag-fit yung kung what God allowed in my life, the people He allowed me to meet, and
mm,
the skills that He allowed me to have. And for me
mm,
kasi it's not just something that's from myself. I think it's from Him kaya I really pursued it and gave everything to keep on going until He tells me to stop. So I think I can't claim it for myself na I'm doing this just because it's my idea. Alam mo 'yun, yung parang okay, ginawa ko lang kasi gusto ko lang. Parang hindi siya gano'n eh. I
mm,
think na it's partially I think not just partially, but I think it's really because ano it's His work. It's His work in my life, and I'm just executing it with His strength then.
mm.
Ayun.
Yeah, that's a really great mindset that you have nga na hindi naman lahat nga ng tao gano'n, like lalo na yung faith nga nung pandemic madaming
Mhm.
nahihirapan, like they're
Yes.
losing hope and patience na rin. So nung 2015 pa lang ang laki na nung tulong sa'yo, so what more kaya 'di ba nung pandemic din, a good thing you have someone,
Mhm.
you believe in God nga and like His ways, and even if it's
Yes.
tough, you go through it, and you realize the purpose He gives nga to you in order to find the advocacy and complete these projects that you have been continually doing. But then I'm also curious nga if what from these stories or like from these people that you've met, ano yung talagang yung isang story na talagang tumatak sa'yo na you learned a lot from this person that you didn't really expect to learn this much of things from him or
Well, from the time kasi I read the article, parang I met this family. And then yung family na ito, they actually rescued a girl that was also being sexually abused by the father of the family that she was staying with previously. So they rescued her. So I really got to connect with this family, and crazy thing was may nagbigay sa akin ng book on purpose, and I found out the family was actually studying the same book then at the same time. So talagang we studied the book together. And
mm,
yun pala, the family was Christian, so they shared the gospel with me, and they became my mentors both spiritually and also in terms of how to move forward with the advocacy. Kasi they also had their own nonprofit at that time. They
mm,
were serving orphans naman specifically. So they allowed me to volunteer for that. And they introduced me to the first home that we started serving and teaching jiu-jitsu to. So the first set of children na we taught jiu-jitsu to nung December 2016, it was because that family introduced me to the owners of the shelter. So they really set it up. They helped set everything up. They helped me figure out what it was that the Lord wanted me to do. And until
mm,
now, we still have that kind of a mentorship relationship. I still regularly communicate with them. They're also pretty much like family to me na.
mm. Yeah, that's a great story to hear. And I wanted to ask also kung nung start ba nung project na to, like you encountered the article in 2015 and then you mentioned also in 2016 it was already growing. Was there ever a time na you felt na you had a difficult, time to actually continue it and you were like thinking twice on continuing it, or was it really a gradual progression that it was growing and you were having people by your side helping you along the way?
Well, of course, it can't always be up there all the time, diba? So I think not just for Fight to Protect, but even for Jiu-Jitsu, 2018 was like my it was like my burnout year. It was
Oh,
like my
okay.
burnout year. But actually, that was the year then that we officially launched Fight to Protect as a movement. And that was the same year then na I fought in the Asian Games. I was really more burnt out because of the jiu-jitsu part. But of course, it
Mhm.
also trickled down to the other things I was doing because I was just exhausted. So, pero it was that year, what it was, I was tired. Like, I was really
Mhm.
tired and I was in denial that I was tired. But what really made me go on, of course, number one is the relationship with the Lord, but number two was kasi nga we have direct interaction with the children that we teach. Eh. So
Mhm.
when you have that direct interaction, that's when you realize what you're doing this for. Alam mo yun? So that
Mhm.
made me realize, no, I can't stop. I can't just stop.
Mhm.
I have to do this for them. I have to do this for
Mhm.
God. I have to do this for them. And I think it was a matter of um, my motivations shifting. It became more about the medal. It became more about winning, and became more about the career. Kaya rin ako
Mhm.
na burnout. Parang nag-trickle down lang yung burnout doon sa fight to protect. But ayun, nabalik naman. Nabalik naman din 'yon after that. And right now, actually, we're at a point of restructuring the organization. I'm not really gonna say what the plans are yet because we haven't figured everything out yet. But we're at the point of
Mhm.
transition and restructuring.
Yeah. And you mentioned nga yung burnout and maybe a lot of people encounter it like lalo na yung in my mga age ko like yung mga nasa undergrad like kunwari sa college madaming gustong salihan na orgs ganun and now all the classes siguro are online so I think for me personally it's difficult. I don't know, I get more tired when it's like kunwari I have
Yes,
three straight classes in the morning or compared to three straight classes pag face-to-face, medyo mas mahirap and then pag may org
yes.
work pa and other extracurricular. So ano yung mabibigay mong payo or advice din sa mga, students or young adults that encounter burnout and, they want to try out a lot of things but they need to know how to, prioritize siguro or, yeah, balance their time well like what you did eventually.
So I think it's internally before I go to the practical. Internally, it's I think
Mm,
a mix of motivation and discipline. You have to be
mm,
clear about what your motivation is in doing what you're doing. What are the deepest
mhm,
reasons? What's your why, 'di ba? Kasi sa times na ayaw mo na, yun yung iisipin mo eh. Sa times na tinatamad ka, yun yung iisipin mo. Pero sometimes that motivation, for it to translate into action, you need to apply yung discipline. Kasi how much do you want that motivation? Diba? How much do you want that to happen? And that level of commitment to that motivation will allow you to be disciplined. Kahit mahirap, kahit nakapagod, kahit ayoko na, I'll do it. 'Di ba? I'll do it.
mm,
No, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. Why? It's because of
mm,
this motivation. Now, ang mahirap if that motivation is not clear. 'Di ba? Because
mm,
if that motivation is not clear, then sometimes you're just going through the motions. Parang for the sake
mhm,
of it lang. 'Di ba? For the sake of it lang. And then practically speaking naman, I would suggest taking like short breaks. Kahit in between
mm,
classes, maghilamos,
yeah,
alam mo yung tumayo. Because when you're
yeah,
sitting down for a very long time, it's so hard. Like even me, I can't watch. I also have some sort of class that I'm attending now, but it's asynchronous. I can't
oh
watch like
okay,
a 1.5 hour video straight. I have to
tuloy-tuloy,
like
yeah.
I have to take short
Mm,
breaks. Like I have to stand up, get food. I have to, alam mo yun, do something and
mm,
try to discover your learning style. Kasi some people they like to learn more listening. Sometimes when I um when I listen to something, sometimes I close my
mm,
eyes because I prefer just listening and not seeing. So it
mm,
depends then person to person parang what kind of learning style will work for you and you can get creative kasi 'di ba ano siya online siya. So
mm,
you can actually let's say your learning style is you have to move a part of your body kung kinesthetic
mm,
learner ka, 'di ba? For you to be able to learn better. So when you're listening, parang try to act out. Kung ano yung I
oo,
don't know, just try to be creative kasi ayun eh, parang we're in this situation eh. We can't just say ayaw na natin. Parang ano
mm,
eh, you're still alive, 'di ba? You're still
hmm,
alive. You're still breathing. So yun sa akin hanggang may buhay may pag-asa. 'Di
Mm.
ba? So, ano yun,
Yeah.
ayun, both ano, internal and practical.
Yeah, those are great suggestions and advice that the viewers could get from you also, and baka ma-apply rin nila sa work nila or sa school nila when lalo na here in a virtual setup na kahit almost 2 years na medyo mahirap pa din talaga.
Mhm,
And you mentioned also a lot of the mental aspect, and I think it's very important, in especially in combat sports, yung your mental state. And now in the pandemic, it's pretty difficult, not only as an athlete but as an individual talaga. So how would you try to explain the massive importance of it? Lalo na you also teach it to younger individuals. So how do you explain it to them well and make them understand the importance of it? Because other people, especially mga bata, ba kala nila kung sino mas malakas yun na kagad yung mas magaling and stuff like that.
mhm. So, sa'kin kasi, I guess mine is, very specific din kasi to my context. Kasi where I get my mental strength is my faith. So,
Mm.
that's really where everything is anchored on, eh. Kasi I'm not relying on myself, eh, I'm relying on the Lord. If He is the creator of the universe, then I have, alam mo yun, parang hindi ko kailangan mag-worry. Sometimes,
Mm.
especially nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, um parang it led me to get to know him more. So I had to look into the word more, spend more time with it. And the more that I got to know him, the more na I realized na wow, he's a God who is sovereign and good. So I know na even if things don't seem like they're okay at the end, in the end of everything, parang yung ultimate is still good. There's still good in the ultimate, even if the proximate seems like it's not, because an ultimate God who is ultimately good is ruling over everything. So, uh,
Mm.
personally, that's what I believe, and that's also what I teach to the kids that we teach actually, because the owners of their homes are also they're actually Christian homes as well. So we do
Mhm.
have the same worldview, and that's where we anchor our strength. That's where we anchor our motivations. It's always to bring him glory and even discipline, because yung mindset na even if no one's watching, God's watching. Even if no
Mm.
human being is watching, he's watching. So 100% of the time you have to be at your best because he's watching you. And alam mo yun, parang he spared he gave his life for us. So what more can we what I mean, he gave his life for us, so um we are his. So
Mm.
anytime na we think something is difficult to do, anytime na we don't feel like doing this, but he wants us to do it, so I do
Mm.
it, 'di ba? I submit to him and I do it. So that's if that's my most honest answer, because I can't give any other answer, because that's really how I think, and that's where I anchor my strength mentally, and that's also what I teach to the children that we teach. Kasi nga
Mm.
very very deep yung mga pinagdaanan nilang troubles
Yeah.
in life, 'di ba?
Mm.
So yeah, that's the most real thing I can say.
Yeah, that facet of your life talaga is a great help, and it's a for if you really have a strong faith, hindi mo mararamdaman na ang laki na pala ng tulong bigla, like it could come unexpectedly. Yun nga yung mga miracles then that could happen na if you have a strong faith and strong belief, it could happen talaga. And it helps you also, especially in the tough times. And I wanted to ask lang, like, yung mga kids nga you teach a lot nung with this whole project that you have, especially them, they've encountered a lot already in their life. So, paano mo naman masasabi sa mga audience yung importance ng self-defense or martial arts in the development and growth of a child? Kasi, I don't know, maybe some parents will say na, wag muna yan, try mo muna yung ibang sport, ganyan. Pero, it might, this aspect of their life is also important.
So, yung teaching them jujitsu actually, somehow, if you teach it right, because there's also a right way of teaching it, and there's a way of teaching it that's not good for the child, diba? So
Mm.
it's also, I think, what kinds of values do you teach along with the skills? I think that's
Mm.
very important if you're a parent, or if you know of parents who are looking for jujitsu schools, look up their instructors. research them, stalk them on social media, look at the kinds of values that they show. Kasi
Mm,
lalabas 'yun sa maths eh. Kung ano
mm,
yung saloobin ng tao, lalabas 'yun when they teach this to the children. And the children are gonna be looking up to the coaches as well. So, when it comes to why kids should learn this, one is if yun nga, prerequisite is okay yung instructors. So one is it's gonna help them regulate. It's gonna help them
mm,
regulate their emotions, their aggression kung may ganong klaseng issue, their energy. Kasi 'di ba ang bata sobrang daming energy niyan. Eh, Jiu-Jitsu teaches you
mm,
control. 'Di ba? Yes, there are
mm.
techniques na you submit people, there are techniques na you throw people, but in
Mm,
Jiu-Jitsu it's always done with control. You never do it na
mm,
sabog. Alam mo 'yun? So
mm,
it teaches you that. It teaches you to control yourself actually. Control yourself.
mm,
So for a child, of course, yes, there's the self-defense aspect, but even the self-defense aspect, there's also like a well, I'm not the expert in self-defense. Actually, I'm more an expert doon sa sport aspect. So I can
yeah,
speak
yeah.
more for the sport aspect. But when it comes to self-defense, yes, jiu-jitsu is known to have a self-defense aspect to the martial art. But I think that learning the sport in itself kasi it teaches you to have presence of mind in situations that are under pressure. So literal
Mm,
na under pressure kasi literal na pinipisa ka ng kalaban mo, 'di ba? So,
oo.
literal na pressure and also pressure din, mental pressure. Kasi I think self-defense naman, it starts with this eh. Parang having the
Mm,
presence of mind kapag yung sitwasyon is delikado na. Kailangan
mm,
ma-recognize mo na it's a dangerous situation and you have to run away from it before actually doing something that will even engage the aggressor more, 'di ba? So, before the
mm,
contact happens. So, that can that can be learned in the sport, having the presence of mind in
mm,
situations that might be dangerous for a child. But I wouldn't say na I'm an expert in teaching the actual like self-defense moves ganun kasi I'm more of dun sa sport aspect ng jiu-jitsu. But there are experts. There are experts who can teach that aspect of the sport.
mm. So yeah, based on yun nga, you said na the way you are able to play jiu-jitsu, it's also, integral also. And even self-defense is part of it, but not only the whole thing of it. And I'm curious to know, I'm like interested on how you started. I mean, maybe here in the Philippines, it's not as popular as the other sports. Like, kumare, basketball, nilalaro lang sa village, or volleyball, or
Mhm.
football. Pero jiu-jitsu is not that popular. It's very unique. And it's starting, like combat sports are starting to get popular lang here in the country recently. But I'm curious to know, like, how was like your upbringing like and your childhood, or and how did you actually like jujitsu? Was it like your first love? Ganun?
No, it was actually not my first love. I started jiu-jitsu when I was 22. I started when I
Ah,
was
okay.
22. I started very late.
Mm,
I've gone through different sports. I started with ballet and then I went to um football and then I went to track and field. Then I went to mixed martial arts, then I went to jiu-jitsu. So I discovered jiu-jitsu through MMA. I actually
mm,
wanted to pursue MMA before, but I'm too small. Like I didn't really have opponents. I actually didn't
mm,
even have a division in MMA because I'm too
mm.
light. I'm too light
Ah,
for the
okay.
existing. I was too light for the existing MMA divisions at that time. So
Mm,
I decided to pursue jiu-jitsu with the encouragement then of some of the coaches sa MMA na, o dito sa jiu-jitsu makakalaban ka kaagad, di ba? Kasi MMA wala eh.
mm.
Hindi ko naman kayang magpabigat ng gano'n kasi ano din, ayoko din ayoko din mag-gain ng sobrang daming weight. Mag-iiba din yung galaw mo, eh.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
ayun,
Kahit
kaya
anong sport, mahirap.
yes,
Yeah.
'di ba? So I
Mm.
decided to ano, pursue jiu-jitsu.
Ah, okay. How about naman yun, because kunwari yung ibang viewers, like, gusto malaman how the sport goes. Like, people know siguro na martial arts siya. Like, kunwari UFC fan ka, I'm pretty sure kunwari Brazilian, maririnig mo na magaling siya mag-jiu-jitsu. Pero for you as a player and a professional of it, how do you explain the sport to like a beginner or a newbie na gusto matuto? Like, may mga weight classes rin ba yun? Or ano yung basically goal of the sport or objectives?
So yeah, sa jiu-jitsu, iba-iba yung belt. There are actually belts. So iba-iba
Mm,
yung belt levels. Sa kids, iba din yung belt colors compared to the adults. But sa adults, the basic belt colors, for the discipline of jiu-jitsu that I do, which is yung Brazilian jiu-jitsu, ang belt
Mm.
colors is white, blue, purple, brown, and black. So the way that it happens is you get promoted based on medyo ano siya actually, assessment siya ng professors or yung mga black belts ng team nyo. The ones that
Mm.
actually know you, they're the ones that say if you're ready to be promoted or not. So they base it on skills, sometimes also competition experience and performance, but not always, because there are
Yeah.
actually some players that don't do competitions, they just do it as a hobby, 'di ba? So
Yeah.
ayun, iba-iba din yung ano, yung ways for you to actually progress. But it's really more on ano, your mastery of the techniques. So,
Mm.
kahit na let's say palagi kang nananalo sa competition kasi physically ang lakas mo, pero hindi mo pa rin alam paano gawin yung basic techniques, hindi ka mapo-promote.
Mm.
Kailangan you know the techniques that are expected of a certain belt level for you to become ano promoted. So, in jiu-jitsu we really do heavy emphasis on technique.
Okay, so that's great to hear. And honestly, I'm not that familiar also yet with the sport. Like I have a good feeling about it lang because some of my friends I think tried it nga before for a
Mm.
hobby. I've heard it from them maybe a few years back before the
Mhm.
pandemic. And yun
Yep.
I think they really did enjoy it. Pero I don't know nga kung natuloy na nila. Pero no, ikaw
Mm.
nung when you I think you said you did other sports also. Did those sports help like yung mga football, track and field? Did they help you a lot also in your journey as a jiu-jitsu athlete?
Absolutely. So I think definitely yes, because of course it worked out all my the muscles in my body. So at least yung athleticism na turnover siya sa jiu-jitsu. Because yes, athleticism does help. But even if you're not
Mm.
athletic, you can still excel in jiu-jitsu. Basta mautak ka. As long as you use
Mm.
your brain. Because that's more important than being physically strong dito sa sport ng jiu-jitsu. But I think even more important than the athleticism, it taught me how to commit. Taught me how to commit to a sport. It taught me how to be disciplined and taught me how to work hard to be able to achieve
Mm.
your goals. So, yun yung naging foundation. Kaya din, naabot kung ano yung naabot ko sa Jiu-Jitsu is because of yung foundation din from the previous sports that I've joined.
Mm. You mentioned nga rin the word commitment and it's tough also to keep changing sports and finally you found nga you said 20 something years old and was there any other reason that made you commit to it long term except yung reason na sinabi mo kanina that your coach convinced you from MMA to go do jiu-jitsu? Was it solely that or something else also?
Well, because yung realization din, I was already in my 20s and it I when I joined jiu-jitsu, it was the first sport I joined. Actually, it was the first thing I joined na I was actually winning. So sa totoo lang, sa umpisa, sobrang gusto kong nananalo. So,
Competitive,
yeah,
syempre.
pero I think it was just the first thing na I actually felt like, hey, I'm actually doing well here. Parang, and I knew
Mm.
that I was already in my 20s. And if I don't pursue this now, I'll lose my time because
Mm.
nasa 20s na ako eh. So, and I knew that I would go up against people who were much younger or people who were doing this full time. So,
Mm.
if I wanted to get to that level, I had to do the same amount of commitment as those that are the best in the world. Kaya
Mm.
I decided na, okay, it's now or never. And I had a full-time job at that time and I loved what I was doing. But I
Mm.
realized na yung full-time job na ganito, I can always go back to it when I'm in like
Mm.
my late 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever age I am. But this, yung sa sport, if I don't
Yeah.
do it now, I'll miss my chance. Kaya
Yeah.
I resigned from my job and I became a full-time athlete.
Yeah, wow, that's a great decision. I mean, for me, syempre bias. Gusto ko talaga ng mga athletes and
Yeah.
how they pursue their sport talaga. Yung mga determination and fortitude, yan yung mga virtues na great talaga. And that's great to see from you that you continued to pursue it. And you mentioned winning nga, and you started in 2014, I think. So when did it start na you were racking up these wins and championships at the jiu-jitsu level na you realized na talagang tutuloy ko na to hanggang kaya.
Yeah. So 2013 was actually the year na I started.
At
So
13. Okay.
after let's say a month or maybe a month and a half of training, nag-compete kaagad ako ng jiu-jitsu. And then ayun, so I won in that competition and super nagulat ako and I started joining like that entire year 2013. I joined literally all the competitions in Metro Manila. I don't
Wow,
know how
okay.
many there were. I was competing
Mm.
almost every month and so ayun, and then yun, I was still a white belt. So I can't say na wow, grabe yung panalo na yun kasi I mean at white belt level, 'di ba? Hindi naman
Mm.
siya like black belt win or like a world
Yeah.
championship win, 'di ba? But nakita ko pa rin na uy, parang may nagagawa ako.
Yeah.
So yun, and then the year after that, 2014, yun yung year na I decided to go to the World Championship as a white belt. Kasi sa
Mm.
IBJJF, yung club-based na World Championship, it's by belt level yung
Yeah.
competition. So as a white belt, you will compete against other white belts.
Mhm.
So I decided to go for that competition in 2014. Kasi nga
Mm.
nakita ko na, uy, sa local stage, parang okay. So why not
Mm.
try it in the global stage? So yun din yung year na nag-resign ako sa job ko kasi I knew that if
Okay.
I wanted to be world class, I had to do this full time. So,
Mm.
yun, it was 2014 na nag-decide ako. But I'm not promoting na ano mag-resign kayo sa mga work. Yung
Oo.
mga nakikinig or let go nyo na yung pinag-aaralan nyo, hindi siya ganun. I finished college before I decided to pursue this career. But it's I think person to person din talaga. It depends on
Mm.
what you're called to do.
Mm. And yun, that was a great decision for you as you've been racking up victories even now in your great victory in 2019. Pero yung you mentioned nga yata kanina earlier and I read it then in an article or in a video when I was researching was yun nga you had a difficult time kasi wala pa yung federation ng time na yun and you had to crowd fund yata and ask for help also in funding for this world championship. So how was that like? Was it tough for you na parang nahihirapan ka na rin na talagang worth it pa talaga to na walang federation or talagang you had the perseverance to continue and kasi it was really your ultimate goal to compete in the world stage.
Yeah, so actually, sa totoo lang, the crowdfunding, I was surprised by the people that actually wanted to support the dream. Kasi
Mm.
nung 2014, nung nag-crowdfund ako, I didn't even expect that I would raise the
Mm.
goal amount or that I would be able to go. Pero so many people went out there to support. And kasi wala pa akong international competition experience nung year na yun, nung 2014. So,
Mm.
looking back, I know that it was all by God's grace. Grabe. Kasi, grabe overnight. So, when I released the crowdfunding campaign, overnight, I was already able to raise $1,000. So,
Wow, that's a lot.
parang,
Yeah.
'di ba? Parang ako, wow,
Mm.
grabe to. I didn't expect. And sobrang encouraging nun. And, ayun, sa kaya lalo akong ginanahan. And siguro, isang dahilan din yun kung bakit ako nanalo nung 2014. Kasi I knew it wasn't just for myself. It was for
Mm.
all those people that came out there and supported this journey. So, 2014 and 15, yun yung 2 years na crowdfunded ako. And then 2016, I think I tried it, but then, syempre, after 2 years, nang may nagdo-donate sa'yo, baka naman inisip nila, kaya mo na naman siguro supportahan yung sarili mo. So, nung
Mm.
third year, parang we did other fundraising efforts. So,
Mm.
yes, mahirap, syempre. Um, Buti nga ngayon sa national team, at least ngayon, 'di ba the government gives cash incentive if
Mm.
you win multi-sport competitions. Pero before
Yeah.
wala, kayod talaga. As in, you compete and then wala pang cash prize yung competitions and then you raise
Mm.
funds to be able to compete more and then makukuha mo lang yung ROI of your investment when you're already a black belt world champion and you have like alam mo yun, meron ka ng marketing value.
Mm.
So, ayun, mahirap talaga siya. Mahirap siya kasi hindi din siya kasing sikat na sport like you mentioned earlier. So, you really have to be committed to this and papanindigan mo talaga yung decision mo.
And yun, you were committed to it nga and it was great for you. Pero do you think also na yung federation nag-start din magkaroon ng traction and it was formed because they saw na, you had the success that you had in the previous years?
No, actually, I wouldn't take the credit for that kasi yung international federation kasi yung JJIF, they were really trying to activate the different countries to have an official national federation. So
Mm-hmm.
the initiative actually came from the JJIF. They had the contact who knew some people in the Philippines, and parang naghanap lang sila ng mga tao na mag-start ng federation, and that's how the federation started. So I don't know, it's really not because of me. It's really the initiative of of JJIF. I also tried out din naman kasi syempre kailangan fair. I tried out
Mm.
to be able to qualify then for the world championship, the world championship, the national team. So it wasn't like automatic na, o porket nanalo na to sa IBJJF Worlds, kunin na natin. May tryouts pa rin siya. Mm.
Okay. So, yun. Siguro after na, it was great na for you. And you mentioned in an interview with Gretchen Ho that I watched that you mentioned that yung 2018 Asian Games was a huge milestone for you. And why would you say that was a huge milestone nga for you? And even if, you got bronze, but then in the other tournaments naman, you were able to get gold. But then for you, I think it meant
Mm.
more.
I think even just the experience of competing sa Asian Games kasi is like the highest level na multi-sport competition that I've competed in kasi wala pa kami sa Olympics. Jiu-jitsu is not yet
Mm.
an Olympic sport. So, yung Asian Games na yung parang farthest that we've gone so far in terms of multi-sport competitions. Of course, there's like world championships and yung mga other competitions, but in terms of multi-sport, Asian Games na yung highest level, eh. Kaya I think it was a
Mm.
milestone. Although sana gold, but then yun, it was
Mm.
my burnout year. So I did get bronze there, and I think milestone din siya kasi it really reminds me a lot about the things that I did not get right during that year. Now natuwa, like looking back na,
Mm.
maybe this was not on my mind during that time, but now looking back, it's a huge milestone because I now know the things that I need to avoid in terms of internal and external factors. So I learned so much from that experience of preparing for the Asian Games. So malaki rin siyang lesson for me.
Mm. And yun, and the Asian Games, you mentioned that's a really huge event for you. And how was the preparation naman like? Like how long did you train? Did you train abroad? And did your previous victory siguro in 2017 ganun, or in early 2018, did it really was it really helpful in your preparations for Asian Games, or tingin mo nagkulang rin ng konti kaya siguro kinapos nung dulo?
Actually, sumobra. Kasi
Ah.
we competed a lot, like almost every month nung preparations for Asian Games. And we did a training camp abroad. Also, we did competitions kung saan-saan. But yun nga, yung problema was, alam mo yung tipong, hindi pa tapos yung jet lag ng katawan mo, aalis ka na ulit para sa next country.
Mahirap
Parang
yun.
gano'n, yes. So, medyo na-burnout pala ako. I was in denial at that time, pero na-burnout ako. And then, yung ano din, yung my motivations were not right. Kaya parang,
Mm.
alam mo yun, I was really doing it because I wanted the gold. Alam mo yun? Eh, hindi naman ako gano'n usually eh. It's not always about the medal for me. I usually have other motivations in my mind and my heart. And at that time, it was about winning, and it became, I let the external pressure get to me as well. But in terms of preparations, yun, we did competitions in different countries almost every month, and we did training camps abroad also. So, ayun, sumobra siya, hindi siya kumulang.
Okay, baliktad
Yes,
naman kasi now
baliktad.
pandemic medyo kulang
Ay,
kahit
wala,
anong sport, eh. So, yun
wala.
sumobra naman. Yeah,
Oo, puwedeng
yeah.
hatiin.
Oo nga, eh. You mentioned nga yung pressure na you may get into you, and medyo mahirap talaga yun for athletes lalo na 'pag gano'n kataas na yung level of competition. And yun, yung opponents mo rin siguro malakas din sila nung time na yun, so nahirapan ka din. So how did that whole event or whole circumstance help you naman in maturing or growing as an athlete in your future competitions after the Asian Games?
O yun nga, since I did let the external pressure get to me, and I know that na, I gave what I had at that time, but I knew I could have performed better. Kasi yung, again, like in the World Championship nung 2021, nung Asian Games
Mhm.
2018, yung tumalo sa akin is tinalo ko na dati. So,
Wow, okay.
alam ko na, okay, I could have done better. Na
Mm.
blanko ako dun, parang gano'n. Kasi nga
Oo.
parang it was here, eh. Ito yung
Mm.
ito yung hindi ko natrabaho ng maayos, yung mindset. 'Di ba? Kasi nga konektado siya dun sa motivation. Eh, 'di ba nga I told you earlier na if I am to be truly honest, my motivation for doing everything is to bring God glory. And hindi
Mm.
ko siya nakabit dun nung year na
Mm.
yon. I was just saying it, but I didn't really believe it. Parang gano'n.
Mm.
I was saying it, but I wasn't believing it. I wanted to win because I wanted to win lang. Parang gano'n lang siya and mali
Mm.
siya. Parang naging mali siya kasi parang I pressured myself because of that. And hindi lang ako yung nag-pressure, pati yung mga tao sa paligid. Siyempre, ine-expect ng lahat na mago-gold ka kasi the previous year, Asian Indoor and Martial Arts Games, dalawa lang nag-gold for the Philippines. It was me and si Annie Ramirez. And kaming dalawa, both jiu-jitsu na females. Kami lang
Mm.
nag-gold sa buong Pilipinas. So, siyempre lahat yung public
Yeah.
ine-expect din na mago-golden kami sa Asian Games,
Mm.
inaasahan 'yan, 'di ba? Eh, hindi nangyari 'yun, 'di ba? So, ayun nga, yung expectations, and, yung motivations and yung ginawa ko to be able to fix that was, bumalik ako dun sa ultimong dahilan ko. I spent more time with the Lord and then He realigned everything,
Mm.
'di ba? And actually, that was the same year din na sumali kami doon sa JJIF World Championship for the first
Mm.
time. So, JJIF is our official international federation. Ito na
Mhm.
um, yung talagang national team yung nagpupunta, hindi na siya yung club-based world championships that I used to join.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
JJIF World Championship, first time namin sumali nung 2018 dun sa official
Mhm.
IF. And then, that was also the time na after Asian Games yun, that was the competition after Asian Games. Dun ko nagawa na, okay, I'm not gonna pressure myself. I'm gonna do this because this is a huge blessing from the Lord na He allowed me to do this as my career, something that I love doing. So I fought with joy and I really
Mhm.
fought for His glory. As in, that was it. Hindi ko man lang inisip yung, well, of course, I was thinking of the medal, but that wasn't my main reason
Yeah.
for fighting during that
Mm.
time. And doon pa ako nanalo, 'di ba?
Oh,
So,
yeah, I read about it.
yeah. So, ayun. So, ayun, ngayon I know na what for me right now, yes, the result is always so important and I will never fight not to win gold. But
Mm.
it's not the most important anymore for me.
Mm.
Ngayon.
And yun nga, you had that gold medal in that tournament you had in Dubai. I think Dubai in that year, and
Ano,
with
it
that,
was in Sweden.
Sweden pala. And
Yes,
then
that year.
tuloy-tuloy na yon na nag-SEA Games na rin ng 2019. So, how
Mhm.
was your preparation naman like for SEA Games? Like, nag-iba naman ba yung style mo, yung preparation mo, or yung mindset mo? What was different naman from your Asian Games preparation?
So, ngayon, since we already learned our lesson from Asian Games, binalanse na namin sa SEA Games. We did
Mm.
plan out training camps. We had two, but we distanced them well para hindi rin
Mm.
ma-burn out. And then we also had a couple of international competitions, but we also distanced them well para
Ah,
hindi
okay.
dikit-dikit, para hindi ma-burn out yung mga athletes. So, we were able to do that and the team really performed well nung SEA Games. Like, maraming nag-gold. I think there were 5 gold medals. And siyempre iba din kasi gusto ko talagang manalo, bansa mo 'to, eh. Alam mo 'yun?
Mm.
You'll fight in front of your loved ones. So talagang, sobrang iba yung karanasan ng ano, ng SEA Games. And I think the preparation was also done much better the year after that. Mm.
Yeah, and yun nga, it was great. I mean, with the result that happened, it was fantastic that you got a gold medal. But then, yun nga, was it different for you na competing na, siguro sanay ka na mag-compete abroad, so maybe kung may Pinoy man, konti lang, pero here, tayo na yung home soil. So, was it different for you or same lang naman for you in your terms of your mental na yung Filipinos are now like, lahat sila talaga kukuhakampi sa'yo?
Yes, it was very different. As in sobrang saya. Sobrang saya niya kasi kahit yung mga ano, yung mga students namin na kids nandun tapos my parents were there, my family was there, our friends were
Mm.
there. So parang ito kasi yung mga tao na sumusuporta ng journey mo, eh. So
Mm.
pagka nandiyan sila, talagang gagawin mo din siya para sa kanila, alam mo yun? Parang dagdag
Mm.
talaga dun sa motivation. So, I think definitely may advantage yun.
Mm.
Sobra, sobra. Like
Mm.
right before nung, laban ko, I think maybe a few minutes or maybe 1 hour before. Basta bago na ako ipatawag, pinuntahan ko silang lahat. Tapos
Mm.
binati ko silang lahat kasi ewan ko, gusto ko lang makita kung sino yung nandun. Normally, nung Asian Games, sa totoo lang, my parents were there. I didn't even wanna look at them. Oo, I didn't even iba
Mm.
kasi 'pag nasa maling mindset ka.
Yeah, yeah,
Iba
yeah.
siya kapag nasa tamang mindset ka. 'Pag nasa tamang mindset ka, gusto mo nandiyan yung mga taong mahal mo, yung mga sumusuporta sa'yo. 'Pag sa maling mindset, 'pag
Mm.
pressure, parang ayaw mong gusto mo may sarili kang
Yeah.
that's personal, That's how I
Oo,
know
personal.
if I'm in the right mindset or not. Pagka
Mm.
joyful, 'pag joyful ako, I know I'm in the right mindset. Pero pagka parang masyadong seryoso na parang di mo ako makausap, naku, pressure 'yan.
Oo, oo nga.
Ayun, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great way talaga na, you play in front of your home crowd. Pero in connection
Mhm,
to that nga, yung mga sports na iba rin. Like, kasama ka na rin doon na, nakilala rin sila dahil biglang nag-gold nung SEA Games and it was
mhm.
here. So, we were number one yata sa medal tally and that
Yes.
hasn't happened in how many years then. So, how was that for you na even yung, kunwari, yung mga sports na hindi masyadong kilala, biglang nabigyan ng konting recognition at least? And even to a casual sports fan, biglang, yun pala si Meggie Ochoa, yan sila, Jamie Lim, Agatha Wong, you guys rack up the medals din naman pala. And you guys deserve also the attention and recognition na you get compared to the other sports na palagi na lang din pinag-uusapan.
Yeah, actually sa totoo lang sobrang laking tulong niya, pero sayang kasi yung momentum nawala nung pandemic. Like literally,
Okay.
yung SEA Games hype, we were able to leverage that even after. And then ang dami na naming plans and programs to develop grassroots for our sport. And then even
Mm.
kasi apart from yung sa advocacy, I also teach kids sa gym naman namin, as in yung sa club namin. And
Yeah.
even yon lumaki yung interest talaga, ang daming gustong mag-try. And then the pandemic happened.
Mm.
Sayang. There were really like a lot of plans in the pipeline, like moving
Mm.
forward. And we knew na malaking tulong yung SEA Games in terms of exposing our sport and showing to them how beneficial this will be for your children if they try. So, ayun, sayang talaga, sobra.
Huh.
Nawala lang yon yung momentum na yun dahil sa pandemic. But hopefully, when things start getting better, sana may ibang competition na mangyari na manalo ulit and then
Mm.
magkaroon ulit ng momentum. I know it can
Mm.
happen din naman again in the future.
Yeah, you mentioned nga it's a great momentum, a great way yung SEA Games for sports, especially for sports like jiu-jitsu. But then I wanted to ask your take on women in sports, like especially here in the Philippines, like sila Heidelin when they were successful, sila Agatha, sila Jamie, and you, and all these other people, biglang nabibigyan na rin pansin yung women in sports. And you being in a sport, siguro na male-dominated, it's pretty difficult then. Pero since the Filipinos are being more aware with the female sports, how big of an impact do you think, or how much do people should people have the importance or know the importance of women in sports also? Kasi yun, minsan focus masyado yung mga male lang.
Actually, sa totoo lang lately, ano na siya eh, it's popular. Yung
Hmm.
having females in sport, I think nag-shift na nga yung ano eh, nag-shift na yung I don't know how to call it, but medyo may shift na nangyari. Kasi nga, ayun nga, si Hidelin, parang, hello, she's the only Olympic gold
Yeah.
medalist in our history and she's a female. So, I mean, that already speaks for itself yung performance na nangyayari
Mm.
dun sa mga female athletes. And then Asian Games din, majority
Mm.
ng, well, all the gold medalists were females, di ba? Tama ba?
Mm.
Nung SEA Games. Ay, nung SEA Games, tuloy Asian Games, 2018.
Oh,
Ay,
yeah.
yeah, you can verify that. But then, sa pagkaalala ko,
Yeah.
sa
Mm.
pagkaalala ko, yung mga gold
Mm.
medalists were females. And sa akin naman, ayoko din, gusto ko balanse lang. Parang ayoko din sobrahan yung sa females. Kasi ayoko naman na dumating sa point na nalagpasan naman ng female, tas yung males naman hindi
Uh,
nila bigyan ng attention, 'di ba? So I think na yeah, we're actually already, I think the Philippines is in a very good state in terms of women in sport. Like definitely nabibigyan ng sapat na attention yung females, and somehow, there's like a parang medyo sensational din yung females in martial arts. Like yun nga sabi mo dala sila Agatha, sila Jamie Lynn, parang nagiging
Mm.
sensational siya and also si Pauline Lopez,
Oh
'di
yeah,
ba?
Pauline also, yeah.
Yeah, so parang medyo sensational siya. So I think
Mm.
ano, andiyan na rin naman yung appreciation of the public. Although yes, there are
Mm.
like certain sports na mas ano talaga, mas popular pa rin yung males. But there
Mm.
are also some sports na mas popular yung females. So I think
Yeah, for
na
sure.
ano din siya, sport per sport, preference ng tao. But I think we are there already as the Philippines. Parang I wouldn't say
Mm.
na lahat ng problema na-resolve na, but I think na we're in a much better state compared to other countries.
Mm. And yun nga, since you said it's a great start now in the SEA Games that these people are getting the recognition they deserve. Pero for, children or kids that are willing to
Mhm.
try sports like, jiu-jitsu na male dominated and they're
Mm.
hesitant, baka may discrimination silang makuha or baka sabihin ng parents nila, try mo muna kunwari volleyball na lang kasi yun
Mm.
naglaro lahat ng girls. Or yun, ballet,
Yeah.
since you said nag-ballet ka,
Yes.
paano mo naman ma-encourage siguro yung parents or even kids na, to persevere and try it? Because you never know naman talaga if you will like it or enjoy it kung hindi mo naman ito try or kung meron ka na talagang assumption na, wala ka pa namang talagang gagawa.
Yeah, so if I were a parent, I understand their concerns naman kasi of course very physical yung sport and then
Mm.
syempre it's even close contact, 'di ba? So mag-worry ka din about your child. Whether your child is a male or a female, actually pag-aalalahanan mo 'yan eh. Kaya nga for me important talaga is background check eh. If you're gonna decide to put your girl in a gym,
Mm.
important is do background check on the gym, do background check on the instructors, and make sure that they teach the right values and that they will take good care of your children, whether your child is a boy or a girl. But I think na
Mm.
for females, definitely may benefit siya. Kasi nga, ayun nga, it teaches you then how to work with your body eh. Even if you're not as physically strong as
Mm.
males. Kasi reality yan, biologically speaking, iba din talaga yung katawan ng
Yeah.
lalaki sa babae, di ba?
Mm.
But even if ganun yung sitwasyon ng katawan mo, sa jiu-jitsu, we teach you how to execute proper techniques. Para
Mm.
nga, let's say, you escape from a certain situation na may mas malakas sa'yo, paano ka
Mm.
tatakas, 'di ba? So,
Mm.
even sa sport jiu-jitsu, we teach that. So, I think that definitely, if your child is a girl, very beneficial yan sa kanya. And even if your child is a boy,
Mm.
beneficial yan sa kanya. But yun nga,
Yeah.
background check. Do background check.
Yeah, yun nga tama. That's maybe something that people might take for granted pero it's a very vital nga especially yung mga any sport na kuha ka ng coach and alam mo na yung track record niya or yung pinanggalingan
Mm.
niya. So yeah, that's
Yes.
really great. Pero for your fans or the people that wanna watch you and look forward to your future competitions, meron bang mga upcoming competitions na pwedeng abangan ng mga tao for this year or wala pa ngayon dahil pandemic pa, I mean, all over the world?
Actually, meron. Pero I'm not sure if I'll be in the lineup pa kasi hindi pa kami nagho-hold ng trials and marami pang mga things that the NSA needs to decide. But this year, there's SEA Games again in Vietnam and there's Asian Games in China. So,
Mm.
jiu-jitsu is in both of those competitions and I do have a weight class in both of the competitions. So, prayers na I do qualify. But
Mm.
the trials still need to be held, and even if it's not the trials, I don't know yet how the NSA will decide who to put in the lineup. But
Mm.
ayun, I'm praying, of course, na sana makalaban at makapunta ako. So I can't wait to be able to get
Mm.
out there again. But apart from the SEA Games and the Asian Games, there's the usual na World Championship meron din. So ayun, those are the things to look forward to siguro in the coming months.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask pala, I forgot lang, yung opinion mo about jiu-jitsu being part of the Olympics. Like, why would you say na talagang it should be part? Kasi yun nga, I haven't heard any news about it or any updates on if it's gonna be part like in 2024, 2028. So, yeah, in your opinion lang naman, bakit tingin mo dapat isali din siya?
Definitely not in 2024. Kasi
Mm.
I'm apart from being an athlete, I'm also in the board of Jiu-Jitsu International Federation. So I get to
Mm.
actually witness yung inside action sa International Federation and what we're really trying to push to make Jiu-Jitsu an Olympic sport. And it's not easy. It's not easy kasi
Mm.
the IOC has so many requirements so that your sport can qualify and hundreds of sports are also applying for the same
Mm.
kind of recognition. But of course, I'm very biased with this sport. And
Yeah.
sa akin kasi, if you make a sport an Olympic sport, first of all, syempre mas lalawak yung mga tao um, na mare-reach ng sport na 'to. Eh, ako personally, I've seen the benefits of this sport and of course, I'd want more people to experience it. And maliban dun sa lalawak, mas magiging priority siya ng mga gobyerno na
Mm.
pondohan yung sport na 'to. And
Mm.
even not just governments, but even the schools might even
Yeah.
prioritize it more. And with that, if the government and the schools prioritize it more, then it will trickle down to the grassroots. Mas dadami yung kids in the grassroots who will be engaged dito sa sport kasi nga pinopondohan yung grassroots programs. So, mas
Mm.
dadami yung kids that will be part of the sport and mas madadami yung magkaroon ng pagkakataon na magkaroon ng ganong klaseng pangarap, 'di ba? All the way up
Mm.
to Olympic level. And I wanna see that happening. Actually, not just for the Philippines, but for the world. Na mas maraming bata na, alam mo yun, na magkaroon ng exposure sa sport and to have the chance to become Olympians in the sport of
Mm.
jiu-jitsu. Because I do believe in this sport and its benefits.
Yeah, hopefully talaga by 2028 mangyari na rin yun. And, before we wrap up with the standard questions nga that I ask my guests, I want to give you the chance lang to tell the people, like, what if they want to know more about your project, yung Fight to Protect? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
can they find out about it? Like, its vision, ganun, or yung mga ginagawa mo naman. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about Fight to Protect, you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/fight number two protect, or
Mm.
Instagram, which is just Fight to Protect dire-diretso. Pero yung two is spelled as TO. So Fight to Protect sa Instagram.
Oh.
Or you can also email us at we fight to protect. That's TO, dun sa Fight to
Mm.
Protect. We fight to protect at gmail.com. So those are the different ways to be able to reach us. Feel free to ask any questions if you want.
Okay. So yeah, thank you so much again, Maggie, for joining me here in my podcast. But before we end, I'll ask you the standard questions that I normally ask my guests. So I think in the bubble, I'm not sure if you watched the NBA, and LeBron and all the other athletes were vocal about the issues on social and political, and they were educating their citizens for the elections and all the other things occurring in their country during that time. But then for you, I wanted to ask, like, because here in the Philippines, for me, like the athletes aren't as vocal, or they don't they could express their views more on social media. But of course, it's a preference din naman. So for you naman, do you think that Filipino athletes could know more about social and political issues and use social media as also a platform to express their stance or their thoughts or knowledge on certain social and political issues?
Yeah, for me, I think it depends. Of course, it depends on the beliefs and the stand of that person. Like me
Mm.
personally, I use sport as a platform for Fight to Protect.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
specific issue, I maximize the benefits of the sport and the audience I reach to promote the prevention or even addressing that particular issue. And also my
Mm.
faith. I use the sport to
Yeah.
promote my faith, what I believe
Mm.
in, because I believe that this is all from God. So I want to use what He has given me for that particular purpose. So I think it depends per person. Like if let's say a certain person has very strong political beliefs, then that person can do that, 'di ba? But ang ano lang for me, yes, there's a risk. The risk is of course, you can't please everyone din kasi talaga.
Yeah.
The risk is
Mm.
division, like sport kasi is seen as a neutral ground, eh, 'di ba? It's seen
Mm.
as a neutral ground despite your beliefs, despite whatever political views you have. Sport is supposed to be the neutral ground. But
Mm.
for me, it depends per person talaga. Basta sa akin, when it comes to my faith, I'm vocal about it. When it comes to Fight to Protect, I'm vocal about it. But when it comes to like other matters, not so much because I also don't have strong beliefs on other matters. So kung meron kang very strong beliefs, di mo mapigilan sarili mo, then go.
Yeah.
Diba?
Mm.
Yeah.
So for yung next question naman, if you had the opportunity to have dinner with five people, dead or alive, who would you bring?
Nako, 5 people. Ang hirap naman. One lang naiisip ko eh.
Kahit sino lang, five people, dead or alive. Kahit
Ah,
celebrity, kahit hero, kahit
Well,
athlete?
number one is si Jesus.
Yeah,
Kasi
dami
Christian
nang
ako. So,
sumasagot.
syempre, number
Jesus.
one si Jesus. Number two, siguro, may lolo, because I never met him kasi namatay na siya bago ko siya na-meet. Number
Mm.
three is, well, actually, yung lola ko din sa mother side
Mm.
kasi nami-miss ko na siya. And then, who else? Shucks, ang hirap ng question na 'to.
Okay lang yun, kahit ano lang naman eh. No wrong answers daw.
5.
Mm.
Um, Sino pa ba? Siguro ano, si John MacArthur, isa rin siyang sikat na pastor sa States. Pero hindi siya kilala
Okey.
ng mga tao masyado, pero kasi sobrang
Oo.
solid niya. I have so many questions to ask him.
Mm.
Sino pa ba? Yeah, John MacArthur and R.C. Sproul, dalawang pastors yun na puro mga ano,
Okey.
yeah, 5 na ata yun.
Yeah,
Lolo,
5
lola,
na.
yung
Yeah.
dalawang, solid na pastors and number one si Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As yung last question lang naman, since you know that I just message people on social media athletes to invite them here on the podcast to share their story and talk about various sports topics. Who could you suggest, for me to invite here on the podcast, will share a great story as well, or it's a great conversation to have na. Kahit sino lang naman, any sport trend that you could suggest.
Shucks, ano ba? Ano bang mga sports yung okay na mabigyan ng attention? Hmm, Siguro puwede rin yung mga ano, Muay Thai. May mga world champions din sa Muay Thai, eh. Yeah, na hindi
Okay.
din masyadong nabibigyan ng attention. Both male and female, they have world
Mm.
champions. Siyempre bias ako sa martial arts. Tsaka yun din yung community na kilala ko, eh. Mga
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Muay Thai athletes, um, ah, si Precious and Philip Delermino, mag-asawa sila, eh.
Wow,
Mag-asawa
okay.
sila na ano, ang alam ko world champion sila parehas, eh. Pero,
Wow,
you
ang
can
galing,
verify the information. You can verify the information, don't quote me on
Mm.
that.
Oo,
Verify
yeah.
mo muna. And then, sino pa ba? Well, of course, si Annie Ramirez, who's also my co-athlete sa
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu. Sino pa ba? Um, Sino pa ba mga magandang ma-interview? Si ano, ano pangalan nung mga 'yan? Teka, sorry. Medyo
Okay lang.
mahina ako sa remembering names. Si Denise Zamboanga. She fights MMA na babae.
Oh, okay.
She fights in ONE FC.
Oh, that
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, 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 I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
Si Denise. Um, si Jelly. Jelly Bulaong. She used to be a URCC champion sa MMA, and
Mm.
now she's actually running for Congress. I work closely with
Wow.
her din. I work closely with her din sa Fight to Protect kasi they she's also the head of the Women Commission of Muay Thai. So you'll have like a wide range of topics na interesting to talk to her about.
Mm.
Si
Yeah,
Jelly
so yeah,
Bulaong.
yeah. Thank you so much again, Meggie, for
Mm.
joining me here on my podcast. And it's a great to hear your story. And for all the people also that want to learn more about jiu-jitsu and you and fight to protect, it's great for them to really listen to this episode. And personally, me, I learned a lot also from you. And ikaw, do you have any final message?
Final message. Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Diego, for having me here. And thank you to
Mm.
everyone for listening. And siguro I know most of you, if not all of you, have had a rough past 2 years.
Yeah, for
And of
sure.
course,
Yeah.
we're hoping that this year will be different, will be better. Let's all keep hoping and keep praying for that. And siguro uulitin ko lang hanggang may buhay, may pag-asa. So let's just
Mm.
keep hoping and keep praying. So ayun
Yeah.
lang.
Yeah. Thank you. Is it okay if we take a picture before you go?
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay, I'll take it from here. Sige. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much again, Maggie, for joining me
Okay.
here on my podcast and stay safe.